September 10th, 2024, Philadelphia, the National Convention Center. The gloves were off and the country tuned in, hoping for a presidential debate that would remind us why democracy is worth all the noise. Instead, what we got was, well, something else. Kamala Harris came in ready to swing. She had a plan, and that plan was to make painfully clear to the American public that her opponent, Donald Trump, represents the past, his obsession with 2020 and the stolen election that never happened. Harris looked directly into the camera and told the American people that it's time to, quote, turn the page, as if the last 4 years were a dog-eared chapter in a book nobody wants to finish. Trump, predictably, was Trump. He leaned hard into his greatest hits, talking up his record with a mix of bravado and fact-twisting that would make even George Orwell reach for a drink. Case in point, he told the American public once again that Nancy Pelosi was responsible for the security failures on January 6th, a claim that has been debunked so many times it's practically got its own fact-checking hotline. And yet Trump insists on using the line like it's one of his greatest hits. The Capitol Police Board handles security, not the Speaker of the House, and no, Trump didn't request 10,000 National Guard troops ahead of the riot. Pelosi didn't reject what was never offered. Now, let's talk about Harris. She hit Trump hard on January 6th, painting him as a man who stood by while democracy was under siege. But she got a little too eager. She claimed officers died during the attack. That didn't happen. Yes, 140 officers were injured, but none died that day. Then there's the real wild card, Trump's comment about immigration and immigrants illegally eating pets in Ohio. This is the kind of fiction that would be too absurd for canceled Netflix drama. There's absolutely no evidence to support it. It's Twitter-turned-X-level rumor mongering, and Springfield's police department has categorically denied it. Harris wasn't without her own tall tales, though. She linked Trump's criminal indictment to the Capitol riot, which isn't accurate. Trump's been charged with obstructing justice and conspiracy, not with inciting violence that day. Let's call it what it is, an exaggeration.
So who won?
Well, that depends on who you ask. Harris had moments where she landed some punches, especially on issues like abortion and her appeal to suburban voters. This debate wasn't the knockout that she needed. Trump, meanwhile, continues to lean hard on his core supporters with rhetoric that blurs the lines between facts and fiction, and that base, well, they're not going anywhere. So what does this all mean? Well, we're stuck in the mud. As of the latest polls in mid-September 2024, the race between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump remains incredibly tight. National polling averages show Harris with a slight edge over Trump, leading by around 1 to 2 percentage points in most surveys. For example, Real Clear Politics reports that Harris is leading with an average of 48.4% to Trump's 47.3%, a gap well within most polls' margins of errors. This underscores how competitive and uncertain the election remains. In battleground states, according to Pew Research Center, the margins are similarly close. Key states like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin show slight leads for Harris, while Trump remains competitive in states like Georgia and North Carolina. Voters' concerns over economic issues, particularly inflation and job security, continue to influence supporters for both candidates, with Trump's messaging resonating strongly with white working-class voters, while Harris holds a solid lead with black, Hispanic, and college-educated voters, according to research provided by Pew Research Center and the Financial Times. Despite a tight race, the overwhelming majority of voters, as high as 80%, believe it's still too early to predict who will ultimately win the election. So what does this mean? Well, if you tuned in to last night's debate hoping to witness a clear knockout, you likely left disappointed. Previously, I stated that Harris falsely claimed officers were killed in the events that took place on January 6th. Although her claim was indeed false, it is a fact that 5 officers who protected our nation's capital that day tragically lost their lives in the months following. Some by suicide, but facts are facts. And now we pause to honor those officers. Officer Brian Sicknick passed away on January 7th, 2021, after suffering 2 strokes the day after the Capitol riot. Although his death was ruled from natural causes, the stress and trauma of that day undoubtedly contributed to Sicknick's death. His bravery and dedication are remembered as a symbol of sacrifice made to protect democracy. The losses don't stop there. In the months following the attack, several officers took their own lives. a reminder of the unseen toll that violence and chaos can take. These men include Officer Howard Liebengood, a 15-year veteran of the Capitol Police, died by suicide on January 9, 2021, just days after responding to the January 6th attack. His death is a somber reminder of the immense psychological strain officers endured. Liebengood's service to the Capitol was marked by dedication, and his loss is deeply felt by those who served alongside him. Officer Kyle D. Freytag, who served with the Metropolitan Police for 5 years, was found dead by suicide on July 10, 2021. D. Freytag had also responded to the Capitol riots, and he is remembered by those who knew him as a committed officer who served with honor. Officer Jeffrey Smith, a 12-year veteran of the Metropolitan Police Department, took his own life on January 15, 2021. His family later fought to have his death recognized as in the line of duty, acknowledging the drastic changes in his behavior after that fateful day. Smith's sacrifice is a powerful testament to the unseen impacts of the trauma officers faced on January 6th. Officer Gunther Hasheda, an 18-year veteran of the Metropolitan Police, died by suicide on January 29, 2021. His passing came just days after the Capitol hearings began, further underscoring the lasting emotional burden of the January 6th attack. His legacy of service and sacrifice is cherished by his family and fellow officers. Each of these men left behind a legacy of service and sacrifice, and their memories continue to remind us of the high cost of defending our institutions. These are not just names on a list. They were fathers, sons, and husbands. We owe them more than just a mention in passing. We owe them the truth and a commitment to protect the democracy they fought to defend. Every citizen has the ability to protect democracy with their vote. So if you take anything away from last night's debate, let it be this. A race this close isn't going to be decided by a clever soundbite or half-truths. It's going to come down to who shows up on Election Day. And the stakes, they couldn't be higher. The stakes are democracy itself. And if your duty to democracy doesn't get you in the voting booth, what will? This is the Deep Gripping Reality Podcast, reminding you that facts matter, especially when so many people seem determined to ignore them.